Hey, welcome back. Dr. Pedram here. Today with someone who's going to help me a lot in my life. Sue Hitzmann has a method called the MELT method. And for me, it's actually probably the most exciting show content I've done in a while, because those of you who know me know I've got lots of martial arts injuries. You know, I've been skiing, I've been, bopping and banging myself around for many years. And there's always something that hurts. And so if you have pain and you're trying to deal with it on your day-to-day, what can you do? Now, Sue has been working with over 200,000 people. She's in Manhattan, but she's developed this method that actually works and keeps working, because people make stuff up all the time and it goes away. So when you have real stuff, it sticks. And so her stuff works. So hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So how did you get into this? Did you kind of trial and error your way into like, hey, what works? How am I dealing with all these kind of recalcitrant cases?
Yeah, I mean, I was working on a lot of clients. I have a private practice here on the Upper West Side, and it actually all started out as homework for my clients. A client said to me, if you could invent a way for me to do to myself what you do with your magic hands, maybe I'd stay out of your office for good. And it was kind of one of those things where I thought, I don't even know if it's possible to do that light touch therapeutic intervention to yourself, because nobody had ever done it to me. I'd never heard about that done before. And I just was like, it does sound intriguing. So in the late 90s, I started tinkering with balls and rocks and rollers and PVC piping wrapped in bubble wrap. And I was like just using different objects on myself and seeing if I could create the same effect in my body, not having somebody else do it to me. And one day I decompressed my own neck. I knew I did it. And so I did it over a period of months. And what was intriguing was that I had a group of women that I had been, doing fitness training with, who cornered me one day and said, out with it. And I was like, what? And they said, did you get Botox? And I said, Botox? What do you mean Botox? They said, you look younger. Why are you looking younger? And I said, I've been doing this thing to my neck. I do. I think it's kind of lifting my face. And they're like, why are you holding out on us?
Totally.
So it was one of those things where they wanted it for that. And the women who had the chronic TMJ and the migraines, I started sharing it with my clients. And it was just sort of a snowball effect where my clients were getting better faster. And over the course of about 3 years, I really knew I had something, because clients were coming back, sustaining the changes longer than I was working with them hands-on with. They were able to prolong their time out of my office. And it was like, gosh, by the time 2004 came along, I thought, I really think I could teach people how to do this in a group environment, and maybe I could keep people out of my office entirely. And that's what started it. So in 2004, I started teaching this in group environments. 2006, I started training people. And today I've got an international best-selling book. I've got 1,300 instructors worldwide. And I thought I was going to make myself rich and less busy. And I'm actually more busy and working even harder and longer hours. But the blessing is that it is an utter and total gift, because I have literally witnessed so many thousands upon thousands of people get themselves out of pain. I just think it's, if that's what my calling in my life is supposed to be, I think I'm on the right path for what my life is supposed to be about.
That's it. And, scale is huge. So, you can only work on so many people with your hands on a given day.
Yeah.
And now you're helping thousands and thousands of people a day, so it really helps. Hey, I'm going to press pause real quick. There's a little kind of scratchiness happening in the audio on your side. Can you make sure your jack is in right? I'm hearing something banging, and I don't see any kind of, it's not hitting your necklace or anything, but I'm just getting,
No?
I'm getting the kind of scratchy thing.
Do you want me to try to go onto open mic?
Let's try it, because I'm getting a lot of it.
There.
Okay, go ahead and say something.
Wait a minute. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I hear you. Lenzo?
Is that new?
It's better. Let me just make sure I don't echo. No, we're good. We're
okay.
Good. Yeah, that's better. Cool. Okay, we're back. And now you don't have to have the funny earbuds in, which Apple just got rid of anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so I'm going to pick up for where we left off. Hey, live viewers, this is what happens when we go back and edit. So I actually had this myself in clinic, right? It's like I could only help a certain amount of people every single day, and then all of a sudden I started doing media, and yeah, I work long, hard hours, but I'm helping hundreds of thousands of people versus 30 a day. So it's you're doing the right work. Now, let's back up a little bit. There's a piece to this that I think we need to just kind of set the stage for. Light touch. What were you doing with your magic hands in that setting, right?
So in the late 90s, my first introduction to hands-on therapy was actually neuromuscular therapy. I studied under Leon Chaites, so I was working on muscle testing, and I was learning, more heavy compression and being a little more bossy with my hands. And I guess it was like maybe 1996, I got introduced to cranial sacral therapy. And in working with this woman one time, I had foot pain, and I'm not kidding, she worked on my nose. The next morning I woke up and my foot didn't hurt me, and I was like,
come on. Yeah.
What muscle were you working on? And she said, I wasn't working on a muscle, I was working on your cranial rhythm. And my whole blessing has been, as a kid, I've always had this ability to feel vibration on bodies. I just have a very good sense of touch. And when she started talking about the cranial rhythm, I said, you mean like the fill and release phase of the cerebral spinal fluid? She said, yeah. And I was like, are you doing something with it? And she said to me, can you feel that? And I said, oh yeah, there's all sorts of things like organs move and things like that. She said, Sue, not everybody can do that. Maybe you should take a course to learn how to hone in the skill. And that was it. I had a great knack at doing light touch therapy, so I got involved in cranial sacral therapy, visceral manipulation, lymphatic drainage. And that was really where the turning point also of my hands-on practice happened, where, my clients, when I was doing neuromuscular therapy techniques and working on muscles, they would make changes, but they would kind of always come back sort of in the same place that they were the last week I saw them. And when I started doing the cranial sacral therapy and rebalanced rhythms, and then I kind of figured out I could feel the fascial flow, and I thought, gee, I wonder if I could redistribute that fascial flow before I did NMT work. And that was where the techniques lasted longer of neuromuscular therapy. I made bigger changes on my clients, and they were able to hold them longer. And that was where I started to shift my focus into, there was really something to a more gentle approach to the tissue. I think that you don't need to inflict pain to get out of pain. I think that maybe there's more to the body, that if we listen and we go in with a lighter touch, that the body could actually adapt faster. And with that in my mind, that's what I've been doing for the last 16 years. So I, kind of drank the Kool-Aid, and I just don't think I'll ever go back. I mean, there is a time and a place for heavy compression, and sometimes I still, do that to a client, but I usually start with the light touch, and then I go to the heavier compression techniques. It just always works better.
What's interesting is I have a good friend out here in Southern California, Dr. Ben Rubin, who's kind of a prominent orthopedist. And he swears by this particular woman who then became a friend of mine and said, I don't know what she does. She does all this magic. I don't even understand it, but just go see Gail. So then I go meet Gail Wexler, who is, yeah. So,
That's one of my teachers also.
Great. So I know your pedigree already. So Gail is one of the top people in this space, and so she, we have friends in common. So my son and I, she and I had been friends, and we'd interacted professionally and all that. And then my son came out, and we had to suction my son out because he got stuck. And so I was like, that can't be good. And so I texted Gail, and she's like, look, I'll stay after hours. Just get your ass in here. And so my wife and I go down there, and my wife's a dentist, so this is not in her gestalt at all. And I'd never really seen it like that viscerally. Gail puts her hands and does this light touch on my son, and then literally he has him suckle on my wife's breast because it was all about the bones that were out. And I watched the bones in my son's head and face just kind of fall into place. And it was not like any sort of weird hippy-dippy energy, anything. It was like, whoa! His face physically changed, right?
Yes.
And knock wood, the kid's a genius, and whatever. But it was like, yeah, thanks, Gail, right? And
yeah, I think that's it. I think that there is a mindset, and I think this might just be part of the culture, is that we really have to work so hard, and we have to beat ourselves up, and we have to just go to the point of total exhaustion to make a change. And I think for a lot of people, they kind of reach their plateaus, and then they kind of feel like they have to work even harder and harder and harder until you just burn out. And I was probably one of those in that rat race, 20 years ago, just running, doing, going. And I looked exhausted. That's why people said to me, you look younger. And I think I'm just not so tired anymore, because I think I take that more gentle philosophy and approach to myself. And it is pretty amazing. I mean, I work on infants just as often as I do older adults. And I have to say, it is one of the more incredible things is to watch a baby who's in distress just unwind before your eyes. And if you could do that to an adult, it would be an amazing thing. But, you know, I always say time over tension overload, right? So the younger you are and the quicker you catch things, the easier it is to unravel from it. But the more years you have, it's kind of my friend Gil Headley always says, it's like peeling the layers of an onion. So there's so many thin layers of dysfunction that you have to get through to get to the core and the root cause of issue, that most of us are sitting there just, you know, peeling skin layers, and we never get deep. And the depth of it doesn't need pressure, it needs focus, it needs, you know, specificity. And that, I think, is what those types of light touch therapies do. And that's what Gail does, you know, with her hands also. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you know, and that's really kind of the paradigm shift, right? In that, you know, it's like, hey, my neck hurts, so I'm gonna go pay some Korean lady to stand on it, right? And like, you know, kick me in the occiput because, you know, because this is where it hurts, I need a Hail Mary, and I need something really, really kind of aggressive to kind of match the pain that I'm in. And that's very, it's very yang, right? It's a very yang approach. We come from a very kind of, you know, let's fix it allopathic mentality, which is, you know, surgery or antibiotics or whatever. And that's not how stuff gets stored in the tissue, right? And so this light touch, this paradigm shift, I love the just the name of your entire brand called Melt, because there's something implicit in the word melt that has to do with letting go. So how does one melt into this other way?
Right. So what my whole concept is about is I have been a founding member of the Fascial Research Society, and my curiosity was in connective tissue. And it's one of those elements of our body that most people don't know anything about. And if they do know something about it, like people in fitness, are very obsessed with the word myofascia. Now, like myofascia, everybody's a myofascial expert. And I say, you know, when you talk about myofascia, you're still talking about the muscles, but when you talk about the connective tissue as a system, connective tissue is a three-dimensional global matrix. It's made up of collagen and water, hyaluronic acids, elastin fibers, and daily living causes this fluid system to become cellularly dehydrated. And we've all experienced cell dehydration. Is like, I'll give you an example. Like when you sit for long periods of time, you get up and you know, your joints just feel so stiff and achy, but then you move around and it goes away. That stiff, achy feeling is what I call a pre-pain symptom. That's what the body is signaling and telling you, hey, the connective tissue is getting stiff, it's getting dehydrated. But when you get up and you move around, your own movements plump back up the tissue and rehydrate it, so we never do anything about it. But if you think of connective tissue like a river, daily living is literally causing sedimentation in the river, and over time that causes low-grade inflammation. You lose you know, space in your joints, and then your nervous system becomes exhausted just trying to keep you upright. That slows digestion, metabolic behavior slows down, and now you just feel exhausted all day. But at night, you try to fall asleep and you can't. Then you get up in the middle of the night, you go into the bathroom like 2 or 3 times. And that is part of the cycle that I think accelerates the aging process and also is a precursor to pain. So what the MELT method is a simple self-treatment technique to help educate people on how to rehydrate the connective tissue with this light touch compression. And you know, all of my products here's like one of the, you know, our melt roller, super soft, right? Like most rollers that you see are hard as a rock. And just, you know, just like how you said, you know, people have neck pain and they want to beat up their neck. And I said, you know, if you think of pain as being your body's alert system, it's like your body's crying out for help and it's a victim. So, you know, if your kid was crying out for help, you wouldn't walk up to him and punch him in the face. You would go find the problems and go find the perpetrators. Well, when you have neck pain, the neck is the victim. Usually the areas of connective tissue and cellular dehydration are other areas of your body. So with MELT, what we teach people to do is to assess what I call stuck stress, how to identify where stuck stress is actually living in your body, treat that so that you're not focusing on the pain signal, but you're actually helping support the nervous system so that the connective tissue can do its job properly, quiets that stress reflex, and it tends to get the nervous system and the brain to stop signaling the body that something is wrong because you're doing the proper things for it. And I always say, with Melt, we take an indirect before direct approach. So if your neck was hurting you, the last thing we would do is work anywhere around your neck. We would work on your hands, we would work on your upper back, maybe your legs, and then we would reassess the pain and see if it felt better. And if it did, right there, it starts to educate people. Like, so my neck is not the problem, it's just the area that's, stressed out the most, but the areas of problem are actually somewhere else. And once they start getting that aha, I think that they perceive their bodies different and they start taking care of their bodies differently. And I think that's really the amazing thing for me, is that, people start to change their lifestyles and how they feel, and, people's faces look different afterwards and they just look happier. They look less, angry and pent up. And I think that that's kind of part of our problem today, is just that we're so overstressed emotionally, mentally, physically, chemically, socially. We're just overstressed. And so Melt, I think, quiets people down and it gets people to become more body aware about what's going on inside their body and stop paying attention to all the chatter and just get quiet with yourself and see if your body will respond.
Some of the studies that I had looked at back in the day, a couple of years ago, was some people were saying it was up to about 70% of our brain energy is being used on the postural system. All of these neurons firing, just being like, oh, we got to compensate because your big dumb head is too far forward, or all these things that happen when we are out of alignment, right? And so the fact that like your friends thought you had Botox because your face was working right says a lot about posture in general, and how when things are biomechanically lined up, there's less effort. And if there's less effort, there's less exertion. If there's less exertion, there's more energy. And if there's more energy, there's less coffee. I mean, just keep going, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. What I call the neurofascial system, the nervous system and the connective tissue are, again, we all kind of have heard of those things, but we don't really know anything about them. And I'm kind of obsessed with it. So the nervous system in and of itself is doing so much for us, but more often than not, our nervous system is functioning so inefficiently because the environment that the sensory nerve endings are living in. I mean, connective tissue is the support infrastructure for your muscles, your bones, your nerves, your organs, blood vessels. Everything in your body relies on the supportive infrastructure of connective tissue to function efficiently. And your sensory nervous system, those sensory nerve endings, actually live in the connective tissue, not the muscle. I mean, by 10 times, there are 10 times more sensory nerve endings living in fascia than there are in muscle. So if the connective tissue, think about it like, soil in a potted plant. If the soil's dried out, the plant's leaves look droopy. Well, think of the plant as being like your nerve to your brain. Well, you feed the fuel in the soil and you plump up the soil, and then the nervous system can function efficiently. That is, I think, the separation where when I kind of had that aha, again, I was working on neuromuscular therapy. I was working on the nervous system, trying to get better motor pathways to open. But if you've got a bunch of roadblocks in your body because of this sedimentation of connective tissue, your nervous system doesn't not work. It just takes detours to get around the roadblock. But that is what starts to accelerate compensation, inefficiencies, exhaustion. And quite frankly, I think that if you stay in that state for too long, that's, again, your precursor to fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, MS, Parkinson's, and all of these neurological disorders that we have now that by, so many more hundreds of thousands of people are being diagnosed with those sort of disorders. And I think we're doing it to ourselves. I think we're altering our own DNA because we're not caring for this vital system where cell transportation and cell proliferation is functioned in our body. It's where it's established, is in the fascia. So we need to, I think, as a culture, learn more about how the body acquires stability, to redefine what a stable body is, and to not think that our muscles are the most important part of our body. I always say, muscles are dumb. They need the brain to tell them what to do, but fascia is highly intelligent. It's actually pre-stressing our bodies so that we function efficiently. Again, it's an environment that we live in. We just need to know more about it.
Well, and the challenge is most people in our culture are parked up at some desk looking at some two-dimensional screen, moving around a mouse that isn't actually alive, and crimping their neck like so, and all of it. And then they're like, oh wow, yeah, that sounds good. That actually sounds to me better than a week in Maui, is just getting a little decompression to the back of the neck, because flying to paradise takes all the energy out of you with all the travel, and most of us just need to learn how to unwind right where we're sitting. So I'm in an office chair, I'm listening to this going, okay, how much of my time, Sue, how much of my time is this going to take, right?
That's the good news about connective tissue, is because it's a fluid system. If you know how to treat it properly, when you first start, you're going to be doing this for anywhere between 10 minutes and 40 minutes a day. But then once you go through 2 weeks and you really start to reestablish a better environment, you can do melt 10 minutes a day, 3 times a week, and you're good to go. I mean, my body, I like what I feel like after I melt. And in the morning, I brush my teeth and I melt my feet at the same time, so that I reestablish my ground force control. I want my footing to be good for me. And if all I have is a minute or two, I melt my feet. Each technique and each sequence, like in the Melt Method book, I broke things down into these sequences. And each sequence takes anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes, depending upon which sequence you're doing. So it just depends upon how much time you have to commit. But I have clients who are in severe pain who come to see me, and I get them on a regimen where they do 10 to 20 minutes of melting a day for the first 2 weeks, and they already come back better. And now they've got tools that they can use day to day. And again, the cool thing about melt is you can do it in the morning to kind of prepare your body. You can do it at night to de-stress. You could do it before a workout so that you have better coordination. You can do it after a workout to reduce the negative effects. It depends upon what your lifestyle is. But, again, fascia is very responsive. And if you think of connective tissue kind of like again, it's a fluid system and we're in a closed cell environment, think about putting it like, your hand in a tub. If you start to learn how to move the fluid in one direction, once you take your hand out of the tub, the fluid's still going in that direction. And that's kind of the principle of fascia, is if you can instigate the fluid flow of the tissue and then you walk away from it, the nervous system and the human system just has an ability to pick up adaptability and change. And so certain enough, your body just starts to adapt to a better place and you feel better. And I have to be honest, I just think that on the whole of stress, I think that most people are just not happy. They don't love passionately. They don't get a hug every day. They don't get somebody to tell them how great they look or how awesome people think they are. I think that that's part of what's hurting us today, is just the lack of human touch and human interaction. We talk through screens and we think it's the same thing, and I don't think so. I think there's something about sharing energy with each other in a live environment that is slowly disappearing from this culture that we're living in today. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but it just doesn't seem like a good idea.
Well, I thought Pokemon Go was going to be everything. I thought that was just going to fix my life. Couldn't agree with you more. It's the human touch. I mean, we've run similar miles, and there's very few practitioners that actually know how to do what you know how to do. And so I'm really glad you scaled this in a way where people can at least do it with props and whatever at home. Because, to find a really good practitioner who knows, like I've been around physical therapy for a very long time, and most of them are just, cranking on what they learned in school, and they haven't done enough continuing ed, let alone the cool stuff. So it's hard because good touch will change your life.
That's right. And that's also, I think, what are, the melt instructors who teach people how to melt, right? A lot of them were not manual therapists. They weren't body workers. They were yoga instructors, Pilates. Some of them were just stay-at-home moms or desk workers or lived in a retirement home, and they were like, I think I could share this. It helps me. I want to teach people how to help themselves. And there is something about touching yourself that, you're not supposed to touch yourself, so don't touch yourself. I mean, it really is, again, part of our mindset that when you touch yourself, why do we have to go in with such heavy force and brute strength? What would it be like to just ease compression in and make something feel good to your body instead of, again, inflicting pain to feel like that's what's going to get you out of pain? I think that a nice, good touched body can change your life. And you're right. I mean, finding a great practitioner is like finding a needle in a haystack. And when people say to me, well, is melt like massage? And I said, yes, except that, it costs a whole lot less. It doesn't take as much time, and it kind of gets you around having to find that needle in the haystack, that practitioner. And if you are blessed and lucky to have one of those phenomenal hands-on body workers, what is also brilliant is that they're trying, they're trying to help you, but then you go home to your daily life and you trash everything that they've just spent the hour trying to help you with. But with Melt, it really prolongs what a great hands-on therapist can do, because you're putting the same intention and the same care into your body that practitioner did. And I think 10 minutes a day of that good care goes a long way with self-care. It goes a long way. People just think it has to be hard, has to cost a lot of money, has to take a lot of time, it must be very difficult. But I would say Melt is simple, it's easy, it works, it takes 10 minutes a day, anybody can do it. We've got 90-year-olds doing it, we've got 12-year-old athletes doing it, we've got 6-year-old ADD kids doing it. You can do it. Everybody can do it. There's a part of Melt everyone can do, and it works. I think the cool thing about it is that you make these immediate changes, which I think is what makes people come back to try it again too. So
there's something in there as well that I think you said it like 6 times in the last minute, and you use the word "you do it," "you're doing it," "you're doing it." And so we live in a culture where we have been trained to go to a doctor or a massage therapist, someone, and say, "Fix me." Right? And that is, it's very disempowering, and it really takes the nexus of control of health out of one's individual sphere. And so I love any modality that really empowers the person and gives them the tools to heal themselves. And so let's get into the methodology. Like, how does one melt? Like, what do you do? Like, maybe for our video people, we have a lot of our listeners are audio only. So I wish I could just get you up and show you stuff, but then they'll miss out on it. So let's get a sense of like what this would roll out as.
Okay, so we use these really soft balls, which if people are watching, this like little squishy ball, I don't know if people know what like a Kadima ball is, like a paddle ball, something super soft that you can actually squish. So what we do are these light touch, like some of the techniques, the compression techniques, we call gliding, shearing, rinsing. So you'd be doing these small compressive forces on your body. So if you take a ball or a roller and you move it in an organized way back and forth, that's called the glide, and it's a preparatory technique. If you sustain one local area and you create more of a frictional motion, more of an identified focal area of compression, that's a shear force. And then to rinse is, again, moving the ball in one direction or moving the roller in one direction through the body to instigate the fluid flow in the nervous system. But, I think the nice thing about Melt, like on the roller, you're lying on the floor, you're doing an assessment lying on your back, you're putting that soft roller against your spine, you're doing breathing techniques and diaphragmatic exercises, lengthening techniques, learning how to cause tensional pull in a fascial line from one point to another in the body. Instead of stretching a muscle, it's a little bit more of a subtle pull sensation that you do. But it's a simple way to use soft balls and soft rollers to cause either tension or compression to the body in local regions to create global effect in the body.
Great.
That's pretty much what we do.
Great. And it's very kind of counterintuitive for the people that are in the no pain, no gain mentality, which is, I need to call in an airstrike and really kind of, destroy this area that's been getting me.
I always say it's the dirty little secret of fitness. Is everybody saying no pain, no gain? Well, the dirty little secret of fitness is that everybody's injured. All of the fitness professionals have chronic pain. And my problem with the industry, and that's actually what happened to me when I was in my late 20s. I was at the peak of my fitness career. I had a Crunch Boot Camp video that sold like 500,000 copies worldwide. I was on ESPN doing fitness things. And yeah, I was an international fitness presenter. And I was in so much pain, I finally faced the fact that I was a hypocrite. I was lying to people. And if I was teaching people what I knew and I was passing that message along, I thought, my God, I'm teaching people the no pain, no gain mentality. I'm actually saying you have to feel pain to be fit. And I said, no more. I'm 46 now and I have no pain in my body. My body looks better than it ever has. I'm leaner than I've ever been. And I don't hurt, and it's a myth. It's an absolute myth. I'm going to say this though: if you want to be super muscular, and you want those crazy big muscles, and there's a physique about it. You're talking about a physique. You're going to have to train really hard and very frequently to be able to make that effect. And I still believe that you can do all those things and not have chronic pain. And if you add something like MELT or self-care to that regimen, I think that you can gain better results without all of the obstacles and the roadblocks slowing you down. That's really the problem with athletes, is that 80% of athletes sustain an orthopedic type of injury, a joint injury, every year, 80%. So there's something missing in the way that we're training and the training philosophy, and that's why the world of fascia and the hands-on therapy and this self-care methodology is slowly filtering into the fitness industry, I think, to create remedy. I guess it was maybe in the mid-2000s where I thought, is anybody noticing that in a lot of health clubs there's a physical therapist office now? Like, is that not a red alert for people? Work out on the gym floor and then go to the PT to fix everything that we've just messed up. And, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And that's where I just thought, I think I need to kind of veer out of being just in fitness and learn more about self-care. So that's what I did in the 90s. I kind of veered out into a more holistic approach and learning, about how to live an active, healthy, pain-free life, not an active, I'm mostly injured and I don't feel good life. I don't want that kind of a life. I always say, even in aging and longevity, doctors are able to make us live longer, but nobody's saying anything about living longer better. And to me, are you just adding years that are lack of quality to the end of your life, or are you improving the quality of today so that when you look out at your future, you kind of are almost setting yourself up to saying, my future is going to be better. You can't, what do I want to say? It's like accidents happen, right? You can't say I'm never going to get into an accident. Car accidents happen. Problems occur, but I think if you're a healthy body, when those things tend to happen, you don't suffer such long, prolonged consequences. So I think it would be a good idea for most people to rethink their fitness programs and how they're caring for themselves and why. Like, why are you working out so hard? A lot of times it's a body image problem. It's an emotional problem that no one's addressing. And MELT, I have to be honest, I think we store our emotions in fascia. So it is not uncommon in a MELT class where sometimes somebody suddenly has what they call a somato-emotional release. They start working on a part of their body and all of a sudden they just well up with tears and have to run out of the room. And I say, don't run from it. Like, we'll hold the space. Let those tears out, because that's your body saying, oh my God, am I letting this go? I don't need to hold this memory anymore. I don't need to hold that pain anymore. I'm going to let this out of my body. And it's a pretty empowering thing when you watch people do it to themselves. It's like nothing you've ever seen, really.
It's the true healing, and it's funny. We live in a culture where we will build layer upon layer of armor around that pain, and move
right.
away from it instead of move through it and into it. And it's really like an orientation that's skewed, that's really driven, the orthopedic industry, the physical therapy, the fitness. I mean, all these different industries are predicated on people pushing hard and hurting themselves for the majority of these cases, right? I mean, people don't get hit by buses that often, right? But people are overdoing it on the basketball court right now as we speak. And you listen, you live in Manhattan, right? And that's part of the culture. It's like, I have so much stress all day. I metabolize so many stressful events in my Wall Street job and my whatever job, this, that, and the other. My life is so high in energy in this area that I think the response to it should be a high energy workout, a boot camp, a CrossFit, a this and that, and then you tear the labrum in your shoulder. And I see it, every day of the week. Whereas what you're suggesting is kind of the opposite of that, is just relax into your body and let your body melt into kind of where it wants to be. And maybe it means like lying around on the floor and taking a nap. And that's probably, what most of us need way more often, right?
Yeah, and there's so many things that come to my mind about what you're saying, because it is part of why I think I understand stress so well is once I had my private practice and I had opened it up, 3 years later, 9/11 happened, and I, was right here in Manhattan, watching live the buildings go down, and my practice exploded because there were so many people who had everything from physical issues because of breathing in, all of the cement in the air and the smoke inhalation, to losing family members and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and wives and husbands. And it was just so heartbreaking to watch the damage of people's bodies and the post-traumatic stress disorders that I witnessed for another decade after. I mean, I still work on people that are still dealing with trauma from decades ago. And we hold bad things in us. And even just how you said, it's like we don't want to address it. We sort of hide from it, or we like to commiserate about it. We have pain and it almost becomes a friend, and we have to sort of change our behavior and our mindset with pain, change our relationship to pain and how we're perceiving it if you want to actually eliminate the pain response. It is really intriguing how the body creates pain, how the brain processes pain, and how we feel it. It's a pretty profound neurological event in the body, and knowing how to quiet it down and give the body something different to organize is sometimes what it takes to, I think, calm it down. It's like a kid who's, all over the place, and you figure out a way to draw its attention to just this one thing, and instead of going like this, it kind of goes, oh, and that's what you can do with your own nervous system by, it's kind of like, I think of the connective tissue kind of being the back door. It's like the secret entrance to the nervous system to quiet it down, is to don't try to go right to the brain or pop a pill and inhibit what you feel, but to actually go through the back door and kind of Jedi mind trick the brain for a second to say, woo, look over here, so that the brain is then drawing attention there, and it shuts the signal of pain down. And if you do that for a period of weeks, it doesn't come back. And it's an intriguing thing to think about, how you can shut off that pain switch, because not much does if you don't go into your body and address it. It's just not going to just go away on its own. No, as witnessed by our history, right? Yes. Yeah, I mean, things don't usually go away. People are, moving into all sorts of drugs, every decade, complaining more and more about things. And yeah, they don't go away on their own, and it's important. There's one thing you said that I want to clarify, just because I know someone's going to misread this, is when you talk about the hydration. I mean, yes, it makes a lot of sense. You got to drink a lot of water. Water's good for you, all that. But we're not talking about sitting there and drinking water for your connective tissue. So how does the hydration work through this system? Right. So we do get the water in our bodies is from what is outside of us, right? And people think, well, if I'm dehydrated, I need to drink more water. And I say not necessarily, because the thing about connective tissue, think about it like a sponge. A sponge that's dried out doesn't absorb water as fast or as easily as one that's already moist, right? So connective tissue for a lot of us is literally like a dried out sponge. So drinking a bunch of water when cells are dehydrated, you'll just pee more. It goes right through you and you're just going to the bathroom all the time and saying my absorption isn't proper. So what we understand about connective tissue is like a sponge, you have to learn how to pump the sponge, how to work the fluid gently into the tissue. And once it comes into the tissue and it's supple, if you can move the fluid through the system, and again, we are a fluid-based system. We're like 90% fluid and 10% attitude and mental, but we're a fluid-based system. Even our bones have fluid in them. We just kind of have a mindset that everything is so still and stiff, and I say, no, actually, we're quite juicy inside. So on a cell formation, we're really talking not about the macro view, I'm really talking micro view. So I'm talking about cellular hydration and how once you ingest water, either from what you eat or what you drink, it then has to get broken down. Water molecules also have to get broken down and then transported through fascia. But again, if fascia is not hydrated already, a lot of the nutrient that you intake doesn't get absorbed, and therefore it does not get transported to the proper cells. And now your colon is full of poo, and you're grumpy, and you got an attitude, and your BO stinks, and you can't sleep, and your digestion sucks, and you're gassy, and you burp all the time, and you've got all these symptoms that you're not realizing can actually be addressed through fascia also. And again, if you support the environment that all these systems live in, and you get the transportation highway opened up, and you get all the detours out, things move better in the body. We absorb better, and we get the tissue to appropriately transport nutrients to other cells. So that's how we get it through the body. But just drinking more water isn't enough. You actually have to learn how to manipulate your own fascial tissue in a proper way, and you do not need to mash your fascia. You don't need to bruise yourself. There's a lot of tools out on the market telling you, blast your fascia away and we'll bruise the crap out of your body and that'll get rid of your cellulite. And I'm like, really? It's just, no, don't. The first thing you should not do is inflict pain on your body if you've got a problem. It's the very opposite thing that would help you. It can go a different way. I just think people don't know that it can. And again, I feel like I'm a messenger. I hang out with the researchers, and I'm a science geek. I mean, I read research papers every day because I like to, not because I have to. So, it's and my gift, I think, has been to take very complex scientific concepts and hypotheses and research papers and simplify it down so that I can give sound bites to the general public to get them to understand the complexities of this system without talking at them, instead of having a conversation with them. And that's really, I think, the most important thing that any therapist can do, is to not, just use fancy words. And if I sat there and tried to explain melt and connective tissue and I started talking about fibroblasts and glycosaminoglycans, who the heck is talking to me? Mm-hmm. But if I said, daily living causes stuck stress, and it's what alters your nervous system's ability to function efficiently, people are like, yeah, I'm full of stuck stress. It's my husband and my children and my job. So yes, okay, so yes, the environment outside of you will cause stress that then you have to address inside. But again, you can work you can heal from the inside out. You don't necessarily need to get things from the outside to help you, but you do need to learn how to do it. And that's what I think. That's the cool thing about the book, is that I'm giving people an education, a simplified education of science and research, and a methodology that they can actually do that's easy to learn and easy to do.
Yeah, and I think you've done a great job at it. So I'm actually going to start playing with this. I'm going to start doing it on a daily basis and reporting back. If there's anyone in my audience that wants to do it with me. The book's called The Melt Method by Sue Hitzmann. put it up over here, and I actually have her DVD set as well to kind of show how to do it and go through it. So I'm going to start doing this. Anyone who wants to do it with me, let's do it. Let's play with this and kind of ease into whatever it is that has been stuck in our bodies. I miss having Gail around, I gotta say, and to be able to like have Gail in a box, that's a powerful gift to be giving anybody.
And just so you know, right where you are in Orange County, there are melt instructors right where you are. So, I would actually tell anybody who's listening, go to meltmethod.com and click on Learn Melt and put your zip code in and see who's in your area. You might be surprised to find that there's an instructor pretty close by who can actually talk you through it. And for any of those skeptics out there who are like, she's just trying to sell me a product, I say just go take a class. Don't buy anything. Don't even buy into it. Just experience it. And I can definitely say people melt once and they're hooked because it makes an immediate change. It makes lasting results. It's easy to do. And it just takes a few minutes a day. Why not try it?
Love it.
Yeah.
Sue, you're great. Thank you so much for being a torchbearer on this. This is really good work, and you've been able to popularize some of the best work that I know in our industry, and now you've actually been able to make it kind of externally facing and help more people with it. So thank you for doing that.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
That's been great.
Thank you.